Hi chess fans! I'm gonna show you three beautiful games which have one thing in common. In each of these games, black out of nowhere found a great move bishop e6, which had a thunderbolt effect and led to very beautiful checkmates. In the first game, Paul Morphy, with his last move knight b4, created a threat. The fork is threatening at the moment on c2, that's why white played knight a3 in order to defend c2. And here it comes, out of the blue. Bishop takes e6. The idea is to deflect white's light square bishop from this diagonal. And after bishop takes e6, can you find the follow-up? Knight d3 check. So that was the idea behind bishop sacrifice. So that to deflect the bishop from c4, so that bishop cannot take on d3. And now white has only two options, either to capture with a pawn or with queen. Pawn capture loses immediately to bishop b4 check with checkmate next move. That's why white took with a queen. However, it is losing the queen, and Morphy easily converted his advantage. Bishop takes a3. White doesn't have time to capture the bishop as the checkmate on c2 is threatening. That's why bishop b3, d2 check, king b1, bishop c5, knight e5, king f8, knight d3 attacking the bishop. However, Morphy ignored this threat, rook e8, and after knight takes c5, simple queen takes f1, and if rook takes, rook e1 checkmate. In the second game, David Bronstein, with his last move, queen h4, checked his opponent, and after king f1, again the same move, bishop e6. The idea again is the same, to deflect white's light square bishop from this diagonal. Bishop takes e6, and now can you find the continuation? It's knight g3 check, king g1, bishop c5 check, d4, bishop takes d4 check, sacrificing the second bishop, and after queen takes d4, knight e2 fork. White is forced to take, and it leads to checkmate. So now you again see the idea. If the bishop was on c4, then after knight e2 check, the fork, white would be able to take on e2 with bishop, and queen e1 wouldn't be checkmate because white would be able to play bishop f1. David Bronstein, in his annotations to this game, in his book 200 Open Games, writes that he actually remembered Morphy's move bishop e6 during his own game, and that helped him to find it in his own game. He writes, and so it is that from century to century, from the oldest of us to the youngest, the most beautiful moves are passed on. And finally, the third game by Bobby Fischer. He played it when he was just 13 years old, and the game is known as the game of the century, probably one of the most, if not the most famous chess game, very beautiful game. So, in this position, white played bishop c5, attacking the queen. As white's king is still in the center, Fischer first checked, and after king f1, here it comes again, bishop e6. Again, with the same idea, to deflect the bishop. And in this game, white actually cannot take the bishop, as after bishop e6, can you find what would have happened? Smothered checkmate. Queen b5 check. This is standard checkmate. Check, double check. King g1 and checkmate. That's why after bishop e6, white accepted the queen sacrifice, as white has no other choice. Bishop takes b6. And now, with a series of forced moves, Fischer would get back with advantage all of his material loss, material sacrifice, and will also get a great positional advantage, as you will see. So first, Fischer returns one bishop. Bishop takes c4, check. King g1. Knight e2 check. King f1. Then he takes the pawn on d4, again with tempo, everything with tempo. Check. King g1, knight e2 check. King f1. Now he reroutes his knight to c3. You will see why it is important. Knight c3 check. King g1. And now he takes the second bishop. A takes b. And again with tempo, attacking the queen. And the rook, without moving, has turned into the monster. Queen b4, attacking the bishop, and rook a4. Now you see why it was important to put the knight on c3, so that black can defend the bishop with tempo, attacking the queen, and the knight is defending the rook, and white has no time to move the rook. So black would get a material advantage after his queen sacrifice. Queen takes b6, knight takes d1. h3. So white positionally is also much worse. The rook isn't playing. It's the only way to develop the rook. Rook takes a2, king h2, knight takes f2, rook e1, exchange of rooks, queen d8 check, bishop f8, knight takes e1, bishop d5, knight f3, knight e4. So all black pieces protect each other. The pawn is defending the bishop, centralized, beautiful bishop. The bishop is defending the knight and the rook. And after this, the pawn is also defending the b5 pawn. So black pieces are very harmoniously placed. And black has no weaknesses. White queen has no objects for attack, and it is completely useless. h4, h5, knight e5, king g7 in order to unpin the bishop. Currently, bishop d6 with terrible consequences is threatening. That's why king g1 in order to move the king from this diagonal. But it leads to checkmate. Bishop c5 check, king f1. And now with series of forced moves, Fischer checkmates his opponent. If you wish, you can pause the video and find it. Knight g3 check, king a1, bishop b4 check, 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 and mate. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like it and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.